Home. We are back, people. What is up? Let me go there, refresh. Okay. Looks like we are live. Awesome. Combine day 2. We went over some of the groups yesterday. I want to kind of, go over some of the guys from yesterday. The DBs are running right now. Kobe Bryant just ran a 4.55. But I want to go over some of the guys yesterday that really stood out that we didn't really get a chance to talk about. Shamar Stewart, unsurprisingly, we'll start there. Texas A&M guy, edge, tested freakishly, like the highest RAS score at his position. So he had like a 40-inch verse, 10-11 broad inch at 6'5", 267. Ran, I believe, like a 4.6 40 and had like a good 10-yard split, which I think is huge. He seems like a guy that, like, he was kind of in discussion with sometimes we would discuss Stewart as a guy at 13. Seems like, to me, he's probably going to go top 10, which honestly I'm not that mad about, because this doesn't change my opinion on him. I always knew he was a freak guy. Like, he was a freak athlete on film. But yeah, nice to see, some of that. Some other, like, the edges standing out. Like Jordan Birch ran a 4.7 at 279. He's a guy moving out there. We're going to talk about the UCLA guys. But it was crazy that, like, Shamar Stewart ran a 1.58 10 split. Like, I have his RAS pulled up. Yeah, just absolutely ridiculous, some of the numbers that he was putting up, like top tier in almost every single category. What's up, guys? What's up, Mario? What's up, Gary? What's up, T. Farrell, Matthew? Yeah, honestly, I think the lineman stuff is always... I think today is a really important day, because I think DBs, like, is probably the most important. I think the drills and the 40, it's probably most important for them compared to other position groups. But I do really like watching the linemen go, because it's very impressive to see some of these guys moving at that size. Mello Dotson running a 4.6. Probably not too good for him. But let's talk about some of the UCLA linebackers. Carson Schwessinger didn't run a 40, but he had a 39.5 vertical jump, which shows off usually your explosiveness. And he did that at 242, and he's one of my favorite targets in this class. Schwessinger, I think, on day 2, if you want to improve linebacker, he's kind of a day 2 option. Some of the other UCLA guys that stood out, there's the Olawufemi Oladejo, that he's like a UCLA edge linebacker tweener. We're going to talk about some of these tweeners that can kind of give you this versatile usage with them. And I think the Dolphins are interested in those guys, and there's guys across the board in, like, sort of each round that I think you can find a candidate like that. And he's one of them. Very athletic, kind of new to the edge position. And you can see the flashes on film. Very athletic guy. One of my new favorites, though, that I just watched, Kane Medrano. He's a UCLA linebacker. I just made a video on him. It's members only right now. But man, I posted on Twitter, like, a cut up of like 2 minutes of his play. Very good cover guy. Like, he tested really, really well. He ran like a 4.4 something 40. I don't have his exact numbers pulled up right now. I'll mention it when I find it in a second. But man, it shows up on film. Fluidity and coverage. He's a former receiver. So he's a former receiver, which is crazy. So he's new to the position, moves really well. He's out there covering people in the slot. I saw him matching up in the slot, matching on receivers. Oh, Maxwell Harrison's about to run. I actually want to see what he runs. Oh, nope. He did a false start, so we'll see that in a second. But he's matching receivers. I do think he needs to work on his tackling and shedding his blocks, but, like, there's a clear role for him, especially as a day 3 guy. I think if you get him in, like, sub-package situations. I've seen him play off-ball linebacker. I've seen him play off the edge. I've seen him literally play as, like, a nickel guy. It's kind of crazy, some of the usage he has. So he's definitely another fan out of me. And then some other people that, really showed out. I think Ashton Gillette, a Louisville guy, he had a really nice vertical and broad jump at his size. Like, both numbers pretty good for, like, he's listed at 264, which is nice for him. Demetrius Knight Jr. ran a 4.58. Danny Stutzman ran a 4.52. Very good numbers for them, because they're both bigger linebackers. Stutzman, I think that helps him a lot, because Stutzman's film isn't my favorite, but that's a good number for him for, other potential people to look at him. Personally, it doesn't change my opinion that much on him, just because I think he has some poor instincts in the class, especially versus the run. Oklahoma State linebacker Nick Martin, Nick Martin is like 5'11", 221. He's almost built like a safety, and that guy. So when you're that size, you got to test off the charts. And he did. Oh, Hairston ran a 4.3 flat. Very good time for Hairston. We can talk about Hairston. He's a corner that I really like for Miami. I think he's a good scheme fit. I think he's really good in like zone coverage, off man. I think he went to the Senior Bowl and showed that he can play press man as well. I think that's he's also a guy that has versatility. I think inside out versatility, which I think the Dolphins covet. Short area quickness as well as long speed, as that 40 time indicates. Hairston has been one of my favorite day 2 targets for Miami. I mean, if he continues that, he might sneak in around 1, even especially if he goes a little bit higher. Yeah, the combine's on right now. The DBs are running their 40 times, and then the tight ends will go later. Yeah, the edge and D-line class both very, very good across the board. Yeah, good there for linebackers. Not a lot of the D linemen and edges did the 3-cone drill, but one person who did was a few of them did, obviously. But I think Donovan Ezeriku was one of the guys that went under 7 seconds, which is like really good. And that's, I think, a good thing for him because he could bump up into the first round because he's a very flexible, bendy edge. One guy I really want to spend some time on is Jahad Campbell. We have, like, if you had to ask me, like there's been a list of players we've talked about at 13 for Miami. Campbell, I haven't really brought up because I think he's going to be a guy that goes more in the 20s, and he's an off-ball linebacker. There's some things there that those guys typically don't usually go super high, but he tested really well. I think he had one of the better testing days. He ran like a 4.5, 240. He looked really smooth in the drills, had good explosive numbers, and I think if you ask me like a list of players that are maybe sleepers that we haven't talked about a lot at 13, I feel like he would be a name I would throw in there that I think is a possibility. Very athletic, can play off ball, can play edge. He did some drills with the edges as well that he looked very good. Yeah, here's Madrano. I have his stuff pulled up. Like, he had a 38 vert, which is a 9.33 for RAS. 10.5 broad jump, which is elite explosion grade. He had a 4.46 40, a 1.56 10-yard split, so it shows he has acceleration and long speed. Really like those numbers from Madrano, and it shows on film. When it doesn't show on film, that's when you can start being worried. They also had, like, if you look at this, JJ Pagis, the D lineman, he was out there doing fullback drills, which was pretty fun to see. He's a guy I like on day 3 in this class out of Ole Miss. Potential, fun usage for him, and these are just some clips of him from the combine yesterday. But nice to see him, doing some work. He looks comfortable out there. I know he didn't run the best 40, but I'm not too concerned with like D linemen running 40s. I don't think it matters too much for them. I think the 10-yard splits are more important. Yeah, I agree. B-Show. I really like Hairston. If he would be a solid second-round pick in my opinion. But if he runs that, he did run a 4.3 flat, and even if he gets better than that, I think this is the end of the first round is also a possibility for him. Yeah, Teddy. Yeah, he was one that stood out. I haven't. Yeah, the Tyrion Ingram Dawkins. I haven't really watched much film of him yet, so I'll have to watch him because I know he did some of that stuff. Here's Campbell just like after the day doing stuff with the edges because he's a linebacker. Here he is like doing the edge group and like look how he's gaining ground after the contact, change of direction, and that type of stuff shows on film too because he is more of an off ball, but like I saw reps of him lined up off the edge in college where like he looked very comfortable. But Campbell on that like relative athletic score was a 9.95 out of 10. Madrano was second. The top 7 was Campbell, then Madrano, then Stutzman, then Buchanan from Cal, then Smell Munden, which is good for him. Another guy I like in like the middle rounds. Same with Demetrius Knight, South Carolina. I also thought Jack Kaiser looked pretty fluid. Like I think one of the knocks usually with Kaiser, the Notre Dame linebacker, is people try to knock him for his athleticism. But I thought like in this drills, like he looks smooth, and I think he does this on like on his tape as well. I think he looks pretty smooth. Like he's not the most explosive player, but I always thought he was like kind of smooth with his movements, very efficient, like not a lot of wasted movements, which is always helpful. James Pierce, another one that we could talk about. That's a weird one. Like personally, I'm not on the James Pierce to Miami train. I know some people like him. He had a really good speed grade, but like he had a really poor vertical. Like he had a 31-inch vertical, which is really weird. And he's just like such a weird player because he's got like a high cut, lean build. Like he's very lean. Like it weighs 245, which is very light for a D end. And you think he would be like a bendy rusher, but he's really more of a linear rusher. Like he's explosive and he usually loves to use speed to power. He's just one of the weirder prospects to get my mind around because his build tells you he'll play one way, but then he plays the complete opposite. And that doesn't, sometimes it translates, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not muted, right? It says I'm talking. That'd be crazy. Wait a minute. Or is this yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I would love Tyler Warren in round 1. I know we'll talk about the tight end class. I'm going to get to the Colston, Loveland, and Warren. They weighed in, and I know they'll be doing. I don't think Warren's running today, but I think Loveland might be. But I know they weighed in, and Loveland came at a pretty nice size and had a pretty good arm length wingspan. And I know there's reports of people being interested in Loveland over Warren, and I know, it's just, and I really like both of them a lot. I just think Warren's a much better fit for what Miami does. I know Jahdae Barron. I wonder, Jahdae Barron came in pretty, he was about a little under 5'11", 194, and had really short arms. I wonder if Jahdae Barron falls because of that. I mean, hey, fall to the second round, Jahdae Barron. I'd be all over that. Tyler Warren came in at 6'5", 256, so good size. But his arm length wasn't super big. He only had a 76.5 wingspan, 31 3/4 arms. Loveland came in at the, where was it? He basically came in slightly taller. They were both he's 6'5" 3/4, so it's 6'5.5" or 6'5" 3/4. But Loveland's 248 and then had 32 3/4 arms. So good measurements for Loveland. I think he came in bigger than most people expected. And I think he's going to be a good player. It's just, I think what I usually value at tight end, specifically for what Miami does, are not necessarily his strengths. Oh, Darian Porter's about to run. He'll probably run pretty fast. Malachi Starks came in at he had very similar measurements to Jesse Bates, which I actually think is not a bad comparison for him. Yeah, I'm guessing Porter's about to run pretty damn fast. Let's see. Yeah, 4.3 flat. Not surprising. Porter was a mover on tape, and he's a big guy, tall, lengthy. I'm sure that his stock will get pretty much raised here. I don't love his tape. I actually thought he might be one of those guys who's better at safety, or you kind of keep him in a cover 3 style scheme. Where's my Porter notes actually? Porter, Darian Porter. Where's his name? Let's see. Yeah. Long, athletic. I think he has good recovery speed. Really tough to beat vertically. Those are my notes. Cover 3 guy. I think he could potentially convert to safety. He's a former receiver. Good run for Caleb Ransaw there as well. I think he's also has a lot of special teams experience, which I think, play speed always helps a lot with special teams. But there's, some instinctive things that I didn't love at corner, or maybe even change of direction. People are running in hoodies and still moving. That's crazy. Let's see what Quincy Riley runs. Do I see the Dolphins messing this draft up? It's possible. I mean, I really think it can go either way. I just have no idea. It's always tough to predict. That's a good number for Quincy Riley, 4.49. I think if you get under the 4.5 range, you're looking pretty solid for DBs, especially corner. Corner, you want to be faster. Safety, you can probably get away with going a little above 4.5. You don't have to be quite as fast, I think, to play safety. I mean, it always helps. But some of these DBs had interesting weigh-ins, pretty short arms from Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron. I also don't know if you guys saw this, but it was percentage of RB runs that didn't gain yards, and the Dolphins were at 28%, which was the highest. The next closest team was 23%. And that's the highest rate of stuffed runs for no gain since 2017. I really do believe the Dolphins' run game is maybe one of the biggest things that they can potentially upgrade at. Also, some of the other guys had pretty good, Hairston had the second best broad jump at 10.9 for a corner. Jacob Parrish also had a 10.9 broad jump. Jacob Parrish also had the second highest vertical, which was 37.5. And Parrish is a smaller corner. I really like Jacob Parrish, so nice to see him doing some good stuff. Not in the business, yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to predict them to be awful, but it's just impossible to actually know. I have faith of them having a good draft. I've seen them do it, but I've also seen them have bad drafts. So it's kind of impossible to predict without being in the room. What did Jalen Smith? 445. Yeah, Stafford's re-signing with the Rams. Trey Amos had a 4.46. That's good numbers for Amos. It's a good number for him. Upton Stout about to run. I think him running will be interesting to see what he runs. I'm 4.5 flat. I think 4.5 flat is good enough. Is good enough for like a, because I think he's even more of a nickel, and you're more worried about your short area athleticism with nickel. So I think you take that of your Stout. Yeah, Jacob Parrish had a 10.9 broad jump, 37.5 vertical jump, and a 4.3 640. Give me Jacob Parrish. Damn. I'm a big Jacob Parrish fan. Kansas State. I made a video on him a while ago. One of my favorite, like, press man. Very physical, too. It's not just testing. Like, when the tape backs it up, man, I think he can play outside and nickel. He's a little shorter, but he's feisty. Has route anticipation. Tackler. Ball skills. Guy's got the dog in him. Dorian Strong just ran a 4.5 flat. That's not bad for, like, I think a zone corner, because I think I see him more as a zone guy. Yeah. Some of these guys definitely. Benjamin Morrison. I think Morrison is just, I think it's the injury thing. He hasn't really done anything because of the injuries. Yeah, he's a bit short, yeah. I don't really care if someone's a little bit short if they have that kind of feisty play style. He'll be around. If he's testing like this, I don't think he'll be around in round 4 or 5. Personally, I have a day 2 grade on him already before the combine, so I think you should go probably somewhere in day 2. And if he has a good combine, then man, he's gonna rise up, because this, to me, he kind of gives, like, I kind of compared him to Mikey Sainristil from last year, and Sainristil got drafted pretty high for Washington, and he played pretty well for Washington. And they're both, I think, like similar sizes. So, and they both kind of play inside, outside. So, but you never know. Sometimes the small guys do fall. I just think his film's too good for him to actually fall. Haven't heard of that guy, but he's running 4.56. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of quality play. A lot of, like, that 20 to 60 range is very strong. Noel Williams gonna run here. Yeah. Well, some players will definitely get pushed down. I just don't know whose it's gonna be. Noel 4.5 flat. Okay, I mean that's solid. Solid. Yeah, I liked what I saw. And okay, so we've been talking kind of about it, like some of these guys that are kind of the tweeners, you know, like Shamar Stewart. He was kind of a guy we were talking about potentially at 13 the other day, but with how he tested, he'll probably be gone. I think, you know, I'm fine with him being gone. These guys usually get pissed up. Like he had an insane day, but he's a guy that was like bigger. He can give you reps on the interior. He's also a guy that can play as an edge. He can literally play from like 7 to 3 technique. And there's people kind of in this draft that are all around like that, like Jordan Birch from Oregon. He's another tweener. He's another one that can go out there, very athletic, you know, very long, can play interior, outside. I think Jared Ivey from Ole Miss is another one. I just checked out his film. The Ole Miss D-line is just really good. Big edge player. I think he's like 6'6", 280 something. Wins at the point of attack with length, good hand usage. Sometimes he'll play too high and lose balance, but like, I mean, I've seen the athletics. Like when he was left on block, sometimes he would close ground so fast. He's got alignment versatility. Solid athleticism overall, solid versus the run. He's just one of those guys that I see like middle of the class that is also one of those valuable type players that could do that. Same with like there's Landon Jackson, Ashton Gelati, who tested well, that can play some inside, some outside stuff. Savion Jones from LSU, he's another bigger edge with some disruptive traits. He had a good Senior Bowl. He's also got size. He can do some of that stuff. Then there's the D tackles that can play edge, like JJ Pegues. Then there's some other ones as well, like Darius Alexander. He tested well as also, and he had like one of the better 10-yard splits for the D lineman. So yeah, I see Shamar. Yeah, top 10. Yeah, he's probably like, if we think about this, right? So before the Dolphins pick, if we do like, we try to consider who's off the board. Let's say we got 2 QBs. I would say 2 QBs is pretty likely, right? So I'm going for like very like high possibility. So 2 QBs, that's 2 players gone. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, gone. I think Stewart starts to go into that conversation as well. He'll probably be off. Yeah, I'm also not on the. That's another reason. Like, I already have like Pierce, Walter Nolan. I already have questions with them about their film, certain parts of their film, and I know there's like certain character issues with them. But that's 5 guys. Then after that, I feel like there's some question marks. Like, I would have said Tet McMillan and Mason Graham, but it seems like more and more with people with sources are saying those guys could potentially fall and be there at 13. I think if they're on the table, then they become, like, to me, Mason Graham, if he's there at 13, I'm taking him in almost every scenario, because I doubt the guys I just named are going to be there. Mason Graham's there. So that's who you're hoping like falls. And then some other people, I'm assuming O-line will go. You'll probably have Will Campbell go, potentially another one. Potentially a tight end off the board, maybe Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren. We've seen Loveland get a lot of love, and he came in at a pretty good size. And from the reports, it seems like a decent amount of teams have Loveland as their tight end 1. Yeah, Mason Graham would be great. Yeah, I don't think Stewart's going to be there anymore with that testing, and I am okay with that. There's people on Twitter, if you've seen, like, there's like the people who think Stewart's horrible because of the production, because he has really low production. Oh, Jahdae Barron ran a 4.4 flat. That's really good for him. He ran 4.4 flat on both his attempts. That's great for Barron. That's really good. I'm happy to see that. I'm a big Jahdae Barron fan, so I've heard from you about Shamar. Yeah, so when it comes to Shamar, he had very low production. I only believe he had 4.5 career sacks. So there's people that see that and think he's awful, right? I don't think that tells the full story. I think if you look at the Texas A&M defensive scheme, and there's other players to prove this, like when Walter Nolan was there, he wasn't as productive. Nick Scorton transferred to Texas A&M and became way less productive. It's because of their style of scheme. They're very read and react, and where they aligned him, he played a lot of 4-eye. It's very hard to be like consistently getting sacks as a 4-eye defender. But when you look at his film, he was disruptive in the backfield a lot. I still think there's like a lack of instincts and a lack of finish, that he won't ever quite be the most productive player ever, even put in better positions. But the athleticism is undeniable, so I do think some team is going to take a chance on him. It's just, I'm probably still like, oh, he's probably a guy that's like, I would rank him in my top 20. I'm probably going to have him closer to like 18 to 20, but I understand why people would have him higher. So it's not like I'm low on him or anything. I'm probably just not as high on him as some other people. Texas wide receiver. Yeah, I've seen Isaiah Bond say that. I think he's going to run fast. I don't think he's going to run a 4.1. Does Genty go before 13? I would still lean yes. Not a guarantee, though, but I would lean yes for Genty going before 13. Yeah. I think I've talked about it. I think sacks, I've talked about this a lot. Sack numbers can be very misleading in both directions, like having a lot and having maybe not a lot. I think you really have to watch film and not just go based off pure numbers, because not all sacks are created equal. Some guys get a lot of sacks, but they were just like either coverage sacks or someone else caused the pressure and they worked into them. And, those are like just not as impressive sacks. Like, I've seen Chop Robinson get a sack that wasn't the most impressive sack, but then I've seen him get a pressure where he didn't get a sack, which was a way more impressive rep. So I think looking at like win rate and pressure, like disruptive rate, is more important. And also just looking at the film, looking at how they're used, like context is so key for a lot of these guys. It's not something like you shouldn't ignore production, but it is something that you have to ask yourself why when watching the film. Why was this production either so good or so, maybe not as good? Why do some people have Hampton over Genty? I haven't seen that yet. I've seen people be pretty high on Hampton, but it could be a scheme thing, I guess, but I don't know. Yeah, A&M was very read and react. Also, like, they had their guys put on weights. Like, their DNs were huge. Like, Nick Scorin put on, like, 20 pounds to play at A&M. And then when you get to the combine, he looked much smoother because he went back down to his weight where he played. I think he played at Purdue, where he was a lot more disruptive. Yeah. Disruption is much more important, I think, to actually seeing how a player is playing. That, like, sacks are obviously very important, but if you want to tell how a player is playing, oh yeah, Hairston did get into the 4.2s. Let's go. 4.29. Let's go, Maxwell. Yeah. I have a feeling, because usually when these, like, corners run a 4.2, they get pushed up anyways, but, like, his tape matches his play. Like, he's a good player, and they're all getting hyped for him. I love that. But he's a good player. Yeah, that's probably going to be, wouldn't be surprised, because all of my notes on him are, like, very positive. He plays with some, and I think he can play inside and outside. I never ran under. I in high school I ran under. I only ever got timed once, and it was in high school, and it was like, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like a high 4, but I was pretty young. Bilal Kone ran pretty fast. Good for him, though. Good for Maxwell. That's the fastest, right? Yeah, 4.29. I'm guessing the only ones. Do Finns take Will Johnson if he's there? I think Will Johnson isn't testing. I think testing is very important for Will Johnson. I think they'll have to look at his pro day, because I think the Dolphins do value speed at corner. So I think they want to, if they are going to draft a corner very early, I think they want them to be fast. And Will Johnson does have some question marks, so I think he has to run pretty fast at his pro day, but I do think he's definitely in play. But he's also a guy that I could just be seeing. He might just be gone. I'm really happy Jahdae Barron ran fast, because I know his measurements weren't super great. And I really like Barron. Yeah, the corners, it's like I think the corner class is actually pretty good, because even some of the guys that aren't doing stuff, like Morrison and Ravel, also good players. Obviously, Travis Hunter, if you have him at corner, which I think some teams do. Will Johnson, Trey Amos, Jacob Parrish is testing super well, and his film backs that up as well. I really like him. Hairston, Thomas from Florida State, just a really solid class, and there's some, like, solid starters to find later on too. Johnson is running. He's not running at the combine, but I believe he's planning to run at his pro day. But yeah, I do think this class at edge and D lineman, I think the Dolphins are going to look to add to it. I think they're going to look to also add, like, versatile guys. I just have this feeling that they're going to try to kind of kill two birds with one stone. Kind of like how some of the people were used last year, like Calais would give you some outside reps at time. These guys that can play in multiple different spots. And this class has them, and they have them in multiple different rounds. And there's guys that are more D-line first, then can play edge, and there's guys that are edge first, but can also give you some interior type reps. But yeah. I like Barron for us better than Johnson. Yeah, I think they're both really good fits, but I don't necessarily disagree. And I really like Barron. And Barron ran, he ran 4.4 flat, which I think is a really good number for him. Because I think a lot of people saw Barron as, like, more of a nickel than an outside guy. But I think having that speed shows that he can play outside. Because he has short arms, but I don't think you were ever going to ask him to play press man a ton. He was always on film, like a very good off man, zone coverage, zone match type of player. Like, very good in zone. He can play man. Like, when he did play press, it wasn't, like, horrible. But I do think lack of length will hurt him potentially if they want to play, like, bump and run. What are your top five? Top five in round one? Top five for me personally, not necessarily what I think the Dolphins will do, because I'm going to have Tyler Warren in my top five. I don't know. I don't think I would guess the Dolphins to take Tyler Warren, though. I just don't think they're going to do that. I'll say Warren. I will say, and this is not in any order. I'm just kind of going through. Warren, Armand Membo, offensive lineman. That's probably the only O lineman I'll put in the top 5 because I think he's like a good fit. Then I will go Will Johnson at corner. I'll throw Mason Graham in there as well. I wasn't even considering him, but I do think he is now an actual possibility. Didn't really consider him a possibility first. He would be my number 1 probably option out of those guys. But he would be up there. That's 4. I'm trying to think someone that's realistic because I'm not going to obviously say like Abdul Carter or anything because he'll be gone. After that's where it gets tough because like I could go like Starks, but there's a couple other D linemen I think are potential. But I think I'd rather wait on D line. The O linemen are, I think better options a little bit later. But yeah, that's probably the top 4. I'd have to think about who the 5th is. Yeah, maybe McMillan. McMillan's tough too because I have McMillan graded high, but I just don't know if he's not the greatest fit. He is not the greatest fit, but he is a possibility. He would be in that discussion though, for sure. He's very talented. Sometimes you gotta just consider talent. He does complement what you have at receiver because you kind of need that play, like that body type. You need a bigger body guy, but I don't think he's the exact type that you're looking for. Is McMillan falling out of top 10? I think it's a possibility because I've just seen it more and more in the mocks, and he's not, testing really at the combine. I've just seen some people say like they don't. I've seen like enough reports now to where it's a possibility, and I think you take all of that stuff with a grain of salt. Anyways, like you got to understand, draft season is also smokescreen season. Some of the stuff you'll hear will be true, some of it won't be. Like we've seen a lot of like teams have Loveland over Warren. Who knows without it being true or not? Like I know, like Dundee told me that some other people, like the 3 YPC, the 3 yard per carry guys were saying that they had, like from his source, they had Loveland over Warren, which would surprise me, but I mean, anything's possible. Yeah, I do agree. Mac McWilliams had a pretty good time. That's nice. I do agree we need more red zone threats, and that would definitely help with that. But I also think there's options like that could also give you red zone threats even at like tight end and some other big body receivers that can help in that area. Also, I think just a better running game helps you a lot in the red zone area. See what Porter's got. Another 4-3-4 this time. Parrish, Porter running well. I'd rather have a 6. I do agree that like a bigger body receiver, I do prefer when like a bigger body guy is more like in that 6'2" range, but then also has like the weight to him. I think McMillan's super tall, but also kind of like lanky and not like kind of, he's not like lean, but he's kind of lean because he's so tall. I kind of prefer a fit for the Dolphins that has a little more weight to his build. That can like break tackles, be involved as a blocker. Yeah, I don't think Paul can. I just don't ever see them moving Paul to guard. I just don't think that fits him at all. And this class is so much better. The free agent class is so much better at guard than at tackle. So I think they're just going to sign guards in free agency. Plus, I've even seen Patrick Paul just say like he's a tackle. Like guards, you want guys that play with a little more bend. You want guys that are a little naturally, have naturally better leverage because they're a little shorter. Paul, it was like absolutely built to play tackle. I just don't really see the upside with him playing guard. Yeah, I really think, to me, the more I think about it, I think the Dolphins are probably just going to go defense round 1. It just feels more and more likely. The more like positions I think about it and like look at these players. Also, like I talked about earlier, if you guys weren't in here, like, I think with how Jahad Campbell, like, I haven't talked about him a lot, but I do think, like, I'm not going to bet on it to happen, but I think there's a possibility he's in play at 13. Like, he's another name to at least mention with his athleticism, and he's also a guy that can potentially play some edge reps. I just don't really understand why we would put him at guard, though. It just doesn't really make sense to me. Like, there's no, like, reason to. You would rather play someone else there that is more naturally fit for guard, you know? And I've also seen, like, people put Austin Jackson at guard. I would not move either of them personally. But I definitely wouldn't move Paul. Like, if we had to move one of them, I would move Jackson. But I don't think they should move either off tackle. I think both of them are built for tackle. Very strong. Basically, when you have, like, guard, like, you want to be more natural, like a natural bend to you. You also want to be shorter. And also, like, yes, he has a good anchor, but he would face guys that would give him more trouble as an anchor on the interior. And they are more naturally, like, because when you're on the guard, you're going against more like defensive tackles who are bigger and typically shorter than edge defenders. So you want guys that are bigger and, a little shorter that can match that leverage. Paul could get potentially taken advantage of with that leverage. And it just doesn't allow you to utilize his athleticism as much, because you want that athleticism on the outside, where you're more likely to be in space, especially in the Dolphins scheme. And length is a big part, much more bigger part of being a tackle than a guard, and he has way better length. So. Campbell, yeah, Campbell is better than Campbell is probably the best, like, true off-ball linebacker prospect, and he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. They let that time run. That guy just ran an 11.79. Yeah, that is another reason you don't want potentially as tall of guards, because it can block QB vision more on the inside. Personally, I don't want tall guards at all. Like, I want my guys to be sturdy, well-built, short area athleticism, natural leverage. They can still torque people at the club. Or 6. That's interesting. I wonder what the Titans will do today. I'm interested to see, like, Gunnar Helm and players like that. Yeah. See, Kyle Krabs tweeted out, on Jahdae Barron's 40. Should be on your watch list for pick number 13, Dolphins fans. Diverse talent, physical, slot/perimeter flexibility. Checks a lot of boxes you expect to report. I think Barron and Campbell are, like, both guys that maybe the Dolphins fans don't expect, that are, like, kind of sleeper options, just because they're flex. They got great positional flexibility. Both are great athletes. They both kind of fit exactly what you're kind of doing in the Dolphins defense. I think they're kind of sleeper options, and I wouldn't mind either, I'll be honest. Yeah, Demetrius Knight tested pretty well. Please get. I am moving soon, so I will have a different background, but it won't look any different. I mean, not really. Probably will just be same shit. Would you be happy with Will Campbell at 13? Yeah, I wouldn't be mad about it. I think Will Campbell will be off the board. I don't know. I think Campbell's a good player. I wonder if I think he can be I think he's one of the guys in this class that can play both tackle and guard. I think he's a better guard for what Miami does, but he also does kind of have the same problem where he doesn't play with a ton of bend either. He does play pretty upright, so I do think he can be a tackle at the next level. But I don't know. I just don't know. I don't think he's a perfect scheme fit. I think they'll see Membo and Banks as better scheme fits for Miami. I wanted to have Brooks play safety. Well, maybe Lime Tree. We're thinking too far outside the box. Let's get a players in there that can play multiple spots, like Jade Barron. We're going a little wild here. Kirsten ran 24.25 miles per hour on that second run. Damn. That's the 5th fastest top speed since 2023. That's pretty crazy. As long as, yeah, I don't know if Liam will. I mean, I'm just guessing he won't be here. You never know. I think it's time to move on. Yeah, there's some fun guys. I got to watch film. Kane Madrano, he's one of my new favorite day 3 linebackers now, and he tested super well yesterday. And I got to really watch his film. Made a film breakdown on him. Former wide receiver, crazy movement skills. You want a guy that basically was a match player out in the slot on receivers as a linebacker? Some crazy work. Yeah, band 74. It's like when fans wanted 19 band. Ty Robinson just moved the board. I actually don't think. Usually, I would say a lot of players would play better in other schemes than sometimes in Miami. I actually think if you're an offensive lineman that struggles in Miami's scheme, you are probably going to go out elsewhere and be much worse because the Dolphins make it so easy to pass protect. It's not that hard to play pass protection. So if he has to start somewhere else and play pure pass sets, I mean, it's going to be a rough day for him. Carson Schwessinger, yeah. I love Schwessinger. Schwessinger is one of my favorite day 2 linebacker option. Love him. Who's the best player you played with or against in high school? Okay, I played again. The best player I played against was probably Michael Pittman Jr. The receiver for the Colts. I think he went early second round of that draft. He played at USC. I had to guard him. To be fair, when I guarded him, he scored 2 touchdowns against us, but not when I was guarding him. So, and then I played a few other guys that are in the league, like Patrick McCarry, the Ravens offensive lineman. Colby Parkinson, tight end for the Rams. There's a few others. I can't remember everyone. But Pittman was the one I actually had to go against. Travis Hunter looks so athletic. Oh my god. Let's see. NT, any more updates? Yeah. Some of these measurements. I was surprised to see that Warren did have shorter-ish arms. I don't have that big of a problem with it because he makes some pretty nice catches on tape. think Fannin actually came in at a pretty good weight. 241, I think, is good for him because I think he's going to be like an F tight end like that. Elijah Arroyo came in at good weight, 6'5", 250. Interesting. 6'5", 241. Some of them bigger than expected, some smaller than expected. I don't know. Like, I'm surprised to see Mason Taylor was like 10 pounds heavier than like Gunnar Helm. That's a little surprising. But I don't know. I don't know who the it's getting tougher and tougher to predict who the Dolphins will like at tight end. I just hope they get a solid wide tight end. You were a DB? Wait, what the fuck just happened? Oh, there we go. Okay. I was like so confused. Yeah, I played DB and receiver. I played like my senior year I played safety. Travis Hunter is 188. Didn't he come in a little bigger than that? But no, I don't think he'll have a problem getting bullied. No. It's not like he's super small. Played a pickup game of basketball against Randy Moss. Yeah. Apparently, yeah, Darren Porter does have almost 1,000 special teams reps during his college football career. So that's kind of what I expect for Darren Porter. He ran well. He's going to be like a gunner at the next level right away, like a very good like gunner for you. And then he has upside at receiver, but looks like Zy Alexander didn't test well. He tested really poorly, which honestly I think matches the tape. I'm not I've seen some people like I hadn't watched much of him. I watched him a while ago and I was like, oop, not impressed. And then I saw some people hyping him up, so I'm like, okay, I'll rewatch him. And I'm like, nope, still don't see it. And he did not test well at all. He had a 4 RAS score, 4.56 40. Really very poor explosive grades, like only a 31.5 vertical. Crazy. Let me look it up because I thought Hunter was a little bigger than that, but I can check. Let's see. Show it to me. Oh no, he did come out at 188. Yeah, he came in at 6 foot 188. I mean, I always thought he was like he's not like the thickest player, but I've never thought he struggled with like physicality or anything. So, and to me, that's not that small. Guess he doesn't have to test since he'll probably. Yeah. I mean, a lot of these players don't really have to test. A lot of the top players aren't even testing. Do you like Tyler Booker? I do like Booker, but Booker is just one of those prospects that's, I think, gonna go like late first round. So I don't think the Dolphins are gonna take a pure guard at 13, and then he's also a guy that I don't see going at making it to the Dolphins' second round pick. Also, yeah, Carson Schwarzenegger is vertical, dude. I mean, I was just watching. I went literally last night. I watched the 2 UCLA defenders. I watched Oladejo and I watched Kane Medrano because I hadn't watched them much yet, and I wanted to really get into them because they both looked good at the combine. Very fun, good players. I like all the UCLA players. But dude, when you're watching them, Schwarzenegger is just making plays, man. And the fact that he came in at 242 and still put up that vertical, I don't know, man. That's a guy that I would love. I'd love Schwarzenegger. Because his film's really good. Oh, they're doing DB drills now. This is always important. It's nice to see like the fluidity on these drills. Yeah, most top guys usually do wait till their pro day because, I mean, to be fair, this field does like a lot of the guys were slipping around yesterday in these drills. One of the field just isn't that, like, it looks pretty slippery. They were slipping around a lot. Some wasted movement there. I just have to see Hunter versus AJ Brown or DK or Jamar Chase. Well, yeah, to be fair, like, I mean, I've seen Trent McDuffie, you know, have, like, who's one of the better DBs in the league, very small, and I've seen him, you know, sometimes get beat by them with physicality, but I've seen them sometimes win with physicality against those guys. So I think it would just be a battle back and forth. Like, he wouldn't win every rep. Some reps, I'm sure you get out physical, but like that's just the nature of the game, and those guys bully most people they see. Plus, I don't know if he's just going to be playing pure press man. Like, I think Hunter's a very good zone corner. I think Hunter does like such a good job at like leveraging routes, like playing high-low and taking away multiple routes at the same time. Yeah. That's why, like, even though I really loved Tyler Warren, like, I just haven't seen the Dolphins actually, you know, ever take a tight end early, so I'm still not expecting them to. And just knowing like what the Dolphins usually do, they typically take premium positions, and when they haven't taken premium positions, it's been like a defensive tackle. I think the Dolphins put a lot of value in that, but yeah, I think that was the biggest thing for Schlesinger was him weighing in at 242 and still having an explosive vertical, because I mean he didn't run, which is interesting, but coming in at that size, because this film was really good. I also had a second on him coming into the combine, so that just, I think, solidifies him. Yeah. What are realistic expectations from the draft and free agency to change the narrative that hasn't changed for 25 years? I mean, it's going to be tough to actually change the narratives, but it's not impossible. I think sort of, I mean, it's definitely not impossible because, like, even though it feels like the Dolphins are so far away, it's not like statistically like they've been that, like, it's not like they weren't in the playoffs. It wasn't like they weren't putting up some crazy, you know, offensive things in 2023. They probably would have made playoffs if Tua didn't get hurt in 2024, even though they looked bad. So it's not like they're that crazy far off. They do definitely have to improve in multiple different areas, especially, I think, really just the most important thing offensively is definitely fixing the run game. And that I think starts with, you know, guards, wide tight end, potentially, you know, adding to the running back room, fixing short yardage situations. Dolphins have enough weapons. They, you know, they have shown different ways to move the ball, whether that's pushing the ball deep down the field, you know, attacking underneath in the passing game, being a run first team at certain points, you know, years ago. It's just finding consistency. And then hopefully this year, the Dolphins will finally have, you know, since McDaniel's been here, he's had a new D coordinator every year. So we'll see if he can, you know, finally actually do something different with that. Yeah. Or they could finally, you know, keep some continuity. Sorry, I was reading something. Achane was in the top 5 of, you know, the miles per hour and the 40-yard dash. They're showing people racing. Damn. Kirsten is moving. Yeah, you definitely want to add some very physical players. Think we get Caldwell in the 5th, possibly? It's definitely possible. I think sometimes those like nose tackles do fall, and it's such a deep defensive lineman class. I wouldn't be surprised like if you find a quality D lineman in the 5th, whether it's Caldwell or not. I think that's one of the positions that's possible. I think the D tackle, edge, tight end, probably running back are the deepest groups. The other spots have some decent players there, but I don't think they're as deep. I don't know too much about John Bates. I've seen him play for the Commanders, and I think he was their tight end 2 last year because Ertz was their tight end 1. I think he was usually their blocker. I'd have to watch his film to see if he was any decent or not. But I know he was typically like their blocking tight end. But they did draft Ben Sinnott last year, so I'm imagining they're probably going to let him go. Yes, Maxwell Hairston ran a 4.29. I was very impressed with Pierce. Where do you project him? Talking about James Pierce? Pierce is tough. I talked about him a little bit earlier, but he is just such a weird player with his build and his play style. They just don't match because like he's a very explosive linear athlete. But you would think at his size, because he's pretty undersized, that he would be a little more bendy, but he doesn't really bend at all. He pretty much just wins with speed to power. And you'd think he wouldn't have a ton of power, but he does have some shock in his hands, and he definitely can create pressure. I do worry about to see how he would play versus the run at the next level. And then there's also, I think probably the biggest thing is like I have heard character concerns from him, from people. So I'm just like, I already have some concerns with his play. But I do think he's probably a guy that goes somewhere in the first round. Unless the character stuff's really bad, but I'm not sure if it's really bad. But Pierce was weird because Pierce ran a crazy good 40, but then had a terrible vertical, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what they do. The tight end group probably won't be streaming for that because that'll be a while away, but definitely like to see some of these guys showing out. Happy with the Hairston stuff because I really like Hairston. Jahdae Barron, Jacob Parrish. These are some of my guys that are testing well right now, which is always fun to see. Yeah. Well, I've watched film on Pierce, and I've gone to the Tennessee games, every home game for the past 2 years for work. So I've seen a lot of Pierce, and he does have the flashy plays, but there's inconsistency, especially versus like top O linemen. When he's gone against top O linemen, he's had a lot less production. And they do like give him ample opportunities to get after the quarterback. Like when he is in, he is, pinning those ears back and getting after it. And he's just very weird. His play style with his body type just is extremely weird. I do think if the character concerns check out though, like he will be a productive, like pure pass rushing type. Yeah, I do think Mike Green can potentially fall. Personally, I would not be looking to take Mike Green because one, he's not exactly what the Dolphins need at edge. I think they need more of like a strong type edge that can give you some interior type reps, and that's not what Mike Green is. That's also why I'm not on the James Pierce train because he's more of like him and Chop would be playing the same sort of position. Landon Jackson. Yeah, he's another bigger edge. He tested very explosive linear athlete. Tested super well in the like linear explosive stuff, but he does struggle also to like bend, turn the corner. But I think that makes sense because he's a bigger guy. But he's also can give you some flexibility. Where do I have Jackson? But he has like very good length. That he has that versatility, good hand usage. Definitely it depends where he goes in the draft for me to be interested though. Yeah, the wide tight end might just have to be Jackson Haas. And I wouldn't be that mad. Especially if they got like good defense early and then you got Haas like early day 3 somewhere. Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked to see Dolphins draft Jahdae Barron at 13, but at 5'11 he isn't actually long enough for Greer's cornerback profile. Yeah. I think though we have seen Greer draft some longer corners in the past, but I wonder with Weaver being the defensive coordinator if that would if maybe Weaver doesn't care as much about length, but he might, who knows. But I do think they will value that versatility a lot. But Will Johnson, who I think they would also like, also didn't measure in super long either. But also, I don't value. I think length is helpful. They honestly, you know who I think Greer will really like is Siobhan Ravel, and not because he tore his ACL. I know people always make the injury jokes, but it's because of his athleticism and his length. Because Ravel has really good length. Yeah, I think like I talked about Jody Barron and Jahad Campbell. I think those are like the sleeper kind of picks at 13 right now that people are starting to mention more and more. I wouldn't put like money on it, but I do think that's a possibility. It's a possibility because you never know. We're just guessing what these people are thinking, and even from the reports, because a lot of the times the reports this time of year are smokescreen, and people are just getting lied to. And sometimes people are just making shit up. Yeah, I do think we have seen Greer have like tendencies, but I don't think it's like I have seen him go and do stuff that I didn't expect though as well. Like I have seen them draft like last year, right? Like early draft, like we drafted Chop Robinson who had short arms, but with super explosiveness to make up for it. And then in the second round, they drafted like a prototype guy in Patrick Paul, who maybe didn't have the best film, but had the great like prototypical traits. And then after that, they kind of drafted people who maybe didn't have those types of traits later on, like Malik Washington, Muhammad Kamara, guys who are a little bit smaller, maybe didn't, were like super testers. I mean, Malik Washington had a crazy vertical, but one thing I think you should look for that McDaniel really, I think just from what the Niners have always done, especially on offense, and what McDaniel's talked about, and he even talked about it with Malik Washington, is balance. I think he really likes balance. So if you see a guy out there that plays with really good balance, I think McDaniel will potentially be interested. He likes explosiveness and balance. Stewart is from Miami. Yeah, Shamar Stewart he's a Miami fan. What happened to Cam Smith? Really, what happened with Cam Smith, I think one early situation, like with Fangio, obviously didn't help. But really, I think the main thing is he's just had a lot of injuries. Like he just hasn't played. He's been pretty much injured the whole time. And when he comes back, he plays for like a game or two and get injured. Sometimes you get unlucky. Yeah, Ravel does really feel like a Greer guy, but he does have the injury, so I don't know where he'll go. Yeah, was it Stewart was the one, right? He was talking about it, right? The other day. Like in his interview, he was talking about he's a Dolphins fan. Was he the one that said Jarvis Landry? Like he really liked Jarvis Landry? Pretty sure that was him. Yeah. Hey, I know the draft is far away. No, man, trust me. Whenever the draft comes, like I'm always just like, wait, I like it feels like it takes forever. So I know the pain. But also I wonder if or no, what I was gonna say is at least the league starts in like a week and a half, right? I think it starts like March 10th. So we're close to like free agency. Like we're gonna see news. We're gonna see new people joining the Dolphins. I'll have new film breakdowns to make on these players, so that'll be fun. Yeah. Cam Smith did have good South Carolina film. I think one thing is with him is he also had potential character concerns coming out, right? Like it was more like how committed he was, maybe being a bit of a diva. It wasn't anything major. But I do think sometimes that can be a difference maker with like, yeah, they're super talented. And sometimes it plays a part of just like, hey, maybe they didn't have the motivation. I'm not going to, that's all speculation though. I really think the biggest thing is just injuries. Like he has been so injured. Yeah, he did talk about Landry. Yeah, that was Shamar Stewart. That's what I thought. But Stewart's probably off the board. Probably gone. Him. I've seen people say he should go number 1. I don't think that should happen, but I think he'll be gone. Top 10. I'm sure we'll see some surprises as well. I think once you get past like the top 5 picks, we're going to start seeing some like, oh, I didn't think they were going to do that. Because I don't think there's a consensus in this draft. I've seen people talk about it. I've seen even like Like we've even seen people who like tweet about it like that are like in the scouting community being like, there's not really a consensus. Yeah. Oh yeah, free agency will change everything. Like a lot of the players we're talking about will be like, okay, now this guy gets pushed up, this guy gets pushed back. But at the end of the day, I hope the Dolphins do enough in free agency where like they can just take the best player. Don't force a need. Now it really is nice when it lines up to be like, oh, one of the best players here or the best player here is a need, so then you take him. But like, don't like super force a need because the Dolphins have done that in the past where they did it with like Juwan James, Austin Jackson, where they like desperately needed a tackle and they forced a need when there was just better players on the board. I pray to God we don't waste a draft pick on a project QB. Yeah, I hope we don't either. I'm fine with drafting a QB day 3, but I just feel like in this draft, it feels like a waste of a pick. I would go for a QB next year, unless you find someone on day 3 that like is a really good system fit that you think could be a potential backup. I don't really like the upside of most guys in this class. I do like Brosmer though. Max Brosmer from Minnesota. That guy is probably the best anticipator in the class, and the Dolphins love anticipation in this scheme. But that's also kind of looking at it from this Dolphins team perspective. There's probably some other guys that might be better. I have to. Now I got to go back and rewatch Darian Porter because I haven't watched him. I haven't watched him in a while, so I have to go back to see. I knew he was athletic on tape, but he is 24 too, which, I mean, you can, if you're really good, I don't really care what your age is, but Nick Amen-Wari had an 11.6 broad jump. Holy shit. Oh yeah, he's another one. Amen-Wari is going to test off the charts, huh? He's about to go crazy. He's another one that, if he has a crazy combine, he's another guy that I wouldn't be surprised to see people throw his name in at 13. Even though I wouldn't do that because I don't love his film, but he is another one that has really good covered versatility. He did start out his career as a corner. He's a very good coverage guy, but I didn't really like what I saw versus the run in his tackling. But I just wouldn't be surprised if he gets raised up there. If you have an insight in Trump's need, but I see team after team prioritizing need. Yeah, but I think a lot of those, I think where, their disconnect is a lot of those teams that you're saying are taking need, they also like, a lot of those times, like, that's one of the best players on their board. When I say best player available, usually you have like 2 to 3 guys in the same grade range. And then that's like, okay, so now we're at our best players. We have these guys all pretty even. Now we discuss who we want to take. And then that's where you typically lean towards a need, but you're still thinking in like best player available mindset. But if you'll go to the draft with the mindset of like need, that's when like GMs get fired. Yeah. Igbo was weird too. Yeah, that was a weird pick. That was a very unexpected pick. I don't even know what that one was. League year starts on the 12th. Yeah. I think the 10th is when like the, what's it called, opens though. There's like the legal tampering period. It's like the 12th I think is a Wednesday, but the Monday is like by like noon or something, they open the legal tampering period, and that's when like you hear people have contracts and stuff. So I consider it the 10th because that's when we're going to start to hear news of people getting like, agreeing to deals and stuff. But the 12th I think is when they officially sign. Wonder how often owners get involved. Yeah, outside of Jerry Jones, probably we've heard it happen, right? Wasn't it? What was the story the other year with? Didn't the Panthers owner like do that with where are they showing highlights of? Is that Hairston? Wow, Hairston looks good. But I believe wasn't it the Panthers owner that did something like that with Bryce Young? I can't remember what it was. And I think the Dolphins are a pretty. I do think the Dolphins like to go BPA. Plus, the Dolphins have so many needs that it's not like at this point, like the Dolphins have like at least somewhat of a need at like every spot, other than like running back and like you could argue even like quarterback, receiver. But even receiver, there's like there's a need for like a bigger body guy. So I think the Dolphins. I mean, even last year, I think they went BPA based on their board because their first 2 picks weren't instant impact guys. Like if they wanted instant impact guys, they probably could have gone elsewhere. But it took like Patrick Paul was a swing tackle and Chop didn't really get his, didn't really get it figured out until like week 7 or something. Yeah. That's what, yeah. So technically the league year starts on the 12th. The reason I was thinking 10th is because that's when that's when it really starts. Like people just can't technically sign their contracts. Like we're going to see a bunch of reports like right away. Like last year, I think it was DeAndre Swift signed to the Bears instantly, which is crazy, by the way. Like how was that like your first move off the rip of being like, we got to get DeAndre Swift signed? Like personally, I've always thought DeAndre Swift was pretty overrated just because he's always a talented player, but really lacked vision. And that always showed up. Just didn't make sense to me. Without Kone. Oof. Can't have that happening, Kone. Hit him right in the chest. Robert Longerbeam? Sometimes like you'll just see names that you hadn't seen at all. Jabbar Muhammad. He's another name that I like from Oregon as like a day 3 guy. He's competitive. Now I gotta go watch some film on some guys again that I haven't watched in a while that are testing well, just to see if see if it matches with the tape. It will be interesting to see how this plays out. I just hope the Dolphins have a good draft. Having a good draft is so important. Even if it doesn't translate to success this year, having a good draft is most important thing in the long run. That's why I'm all about BPA, because BPA is the best thing for, I think, teams in the long run. Because GMs have talked about it. Like they're like, yeah, it might not be seen as a need now, but if we didn't draft this player right here, that's not a need now. It would have been a need a year from now or 2 years from now. There's so much turnover in the league that there's always so many needs constantly. That's why I think just focusing on BPA, I think the only time you should really take need is if it's like, dude, we're this one player away. We're this one spot away. We just got to get the best thing at this one spot and we're good. Which the Dolphins are not in that spot. Just watching these DBs do this drill. And now they're done. Yep, schemes also change. Yeah, that's why like I know some people wanted like McDaniel fired, and I do understand like why they would think that. Personally, I was there for giving him another year, just because when you look at the contracts and where this team is at, like I think it just made sense like up from that perspective to go another year, because if you fired him, I think if you look at this team, it's so built for a Shanahan style offense that wow, this offense would have been so bad if we brought in someone that wasn't in that Shanahan system to run the team. At least it would have been just horrible. And then 2025 would have been like a throwaway year, which it might just be that anyways. But I think they were just like kind of like, well, we built this team to have a chance here. If it doesn't work out, then you blow it up. But who knows? Yeah, that's basically what the combine is, just to see if that's what matches on tape, and if it doesn't match what you saw, then go back and check and see if it's just maybe it's a fluke. But yeah, combine is always just it's a small part of the evaluation process, but it's definitely something to always keep in mind. Paul needs to be on the field. Well, I believe Paul will be the left tackle. I don't think Armstead. I mean, I feel like Armstead's probably going to retire, right? I feel like that's what's happening. Plus, even if Armstead doesn't retire, Paul is going to play because Armstead hasn't played. Armstead has missed how many games? So, and Jackson too. So like both of the tackles have missed a bunch of time. I prefer the Shanahan personnel and scheme. Yeah, I like it a lot too. I don't have any problem with the scheme part of it. It's still one of the better, like, consistent offenses in the league. Like, the teams that run it are usually still some of the better. Like, there's definitely some, I think, evolving it needs to do, but some of them have found that. Some are still looking. The teams that have done it have definitely been some of the more successful offenses. Any questions? Any remarks? The play calling is issue. It's definitely an issue at times, but I don't think it's the main issue with the offense, at least. I think if the Dolphins can run the ball, like we've seen, like, I mean, I think injuries is also probably a bigger issue because we've seen when the Dolphins have been relatively healthy, even when they weren't like playing that good, they were still ranked like top 10 in a lot of offensive categories, which is kind of crazy. You have faith Patrick Paul will turn a corner. I think Patrick Paul showed enough his rookie year where, like, I think he'll be fine for you. Like, I don't think he's going to be a major, like, issue. And I'm sure he'll just get better and better. As long as I think it's this scheme. I think, like, if it's this scheme, I'm not worried about the tackles. I'm not. If it was another scheme, then yes, I'd be much more concerned about Patrick Paul and Austin Jackson, like, playing true pass sets. But I really, that hasn't been a problem for Miami since McDaniel's been here. It's been more of the interior guards and pass protection, and then more of and then typically it hasn't been a pass protection issue. It's been not being able to run block. Yeah. Any final questions? We've been going for a little while now, so I'm probably gonna end it soon. Talk more about it tomorrow if I can. I probably will be on to talk about the rest of the groups that we didn't talk about today, like some of the safeties, and we'll talk about the tight ends. And then whoever is going tomorrow as well, we'll talk about them. Yeah, Nick Imanwari had 98th percentile. That's crazy. Damn. 10-yard splits. Rams are signing people, huh? Okay. Where do babies come from? Man, I don't know. Who's your ideal 13th pick? Personally, for me, Tyler Warren. I know people don't agree, or not everyone agrees, and I don't think the Dolphins will do that, but I think that would be one of the most impactful picks they can make. Corner out of nowhere you see as a fit? At any spot in the draft? I mean, and just in the first round? Because in the first round, I don't know if there's anyone out of nowhere that would happen, other than like Jade Barron. what really happened at Deflategate? They deflated the balls and they got away with it. Do you think Brewer being good at blocking downfield actually hurt the interior run blocking for the line as a whole? No, I think that's just a part of the scheme. So I don't really think it makes a difference on those guys. That's just what they're asked to do. Any round? Let's see. Let me look at names. I think like Mac McWilliams from UCF. I think he's a pretty good scheme fit. Probably middle of the pack. Okay, well, thank you guys for watching.